Hello everyone. So today we're going to be looking at the recently leaked early Halo 1 build that was used in the E3 2000 trailer. Now, I actually watched this video quite a bit back in the day. It was on my Halo 2 multiplayer map pack disc as like an extra, and that version has never really been playable. I'm pretty sure that, all of this environment and all these assets were probably just made for the E3 trailer, and now they've all leaked, like the whole presentation basically. So we're gonna run through everything. I'm gonna treat this like a general overview, going over all the controls and pretty much the entire environment, going over all the weapons, vehicles, NPCs, basically everything I can cover by just walking around or showing what's in the game. Or this, I'm not really sure if you can really call this a game, especially since it was probably just used for Bungie to make the E3 trailer, but it's still very interesting nonetheless. So first things first, you may notice I'm able to make this chief model's head bob up and down as if I was talking. And there's a specific key to make NPCs look like they're talking, which we'll get into why that's probably a thing in a moment. But I just think it's really interesting that they did that. But if you look in the E3 trailer, there are multiple instances where you can see the heads of models moving around, and they probably just sort of machinima'd it. They probably put them through scripting or manually manipulated the models to move their heads up and down at certain parts of the video, and then lip synced some voice acting over it later. So it's a clever trick, and it's pretty fun to use in this instance since it's pretty similar to the old machinima things. Also, to put your weapon down in a low ready state, hold the Alt key. So Alt does that. Tapping the number 1 key is what makes your head bob up and down. You tap E to swap weapons. And Chief has a wide variety of weapons in this little demo reel, or whatever you would call this. Each have their own unique low ready state, and WASD is movement, very simple. We'll run through some more controls as we go on. In this demo or early build, whatever you would call it, there's a key to detach the camera from your first person self. So to change the camera, hit the backspace key. There are many camera modes. Right now I have it set to a simple flying camera. But hitting it again, rotate to the following camera, which is basically a third-person camera, but from a very far away perspective. The orbiting camera, where the camera doesn't really change the direction it's facing, but it still follows you. You can make some nice cinematic shots with this, and I'm sure this was used to make part of the E3 presentation. And then you can switch it back to first-person camera. And right now I'm in the spawning zone. Whenever you first start this build, you will spawn up in this sort of cliffside on the edge of the map. And so with this elite here, I can demonstrate this other feature. So by pressing the backslash key, you will switch to the nearest NPC that you can see, and you will take full control of them. And as you can see, this elite NPC also has a wide variety of weaponry. Strangely enough, there don't seem to be any animations for using the sword. You can see it sort of lights up as I'm trying to use it, but he does not swing it at all. I don't believe it does any damage either. The plasma rifle is about the same as the one Chief uses, and he also has this weapon, which to me looks like an early Covenant sniper. I'm guessing that's what it is. Needler, and the sword, of course. But yeah, you can take full control of any NPC you see, and you will have complete control over them as if they were like Chief, pretty much. Which is pretty interesting to me that technically there were playable elites in Halo 1 at one point, even if it was probably just to move models around for their E3 trailer. And even these models have the low ready weapons, which is very interesting to me. Not really so much for the sword, but for the others. And if you are already in a low ready state and pull out some weapons, they kind of glitch out a bit. So as you can see, I was holding Alt as I switched to the plasma rifle. And, well, his animations are a little off now. If he spins around, he is basically doing the elite T-pose, which you can still see in Halo 1 in certain instances. So, you know, it's not perfect, but this was never meant to be played by the public anyway, and this whole thing is basically just developer tools for making an E3 trailer. So this is, not completely out of place. So moving on, let me give a quick weapons demonstration as well. So this is the assault rifle. And then, functions pretty similarly to the one that we all know from Halo 1. Interestingly, there's also a grenade launcher you can activate with the right click. So that's new. You've got the sword with a complete animation. You've got the sniper rifle, which only fires one shot before needing to be reloaded in this instance. You've got the shotgun, which is functionally similar to the one that we ended up getting in the end. We have this early pistol, which has a very different model. It kind of interests me, actually. It looks like they were maybe inspired by the Desert Eagle in some ways. It looks kind of jarring compared to the iconic Halo C Magnum that we now have, but this is a nice early look, I suppose. But I do prefer the final design much more over that. And that's all of Chief's arsenal. So the Elite also has the plasma rifle, which sounds quite different in this build. This sniper rifle, which I'm going to just show you real quick. When you fire it, the ammo reloads. I'm guessing that's like a cooldown, as if it's like a battery operated weapon. That's like how they implemented it in this version. That's my guess anyway. So they probably didn't have the Needler sounds put in yet, but wherever you shoot the Needler, you will see as if the Needlers were exploding, except they don't have the Needler effects or sounds, so it all just sounds like ordinary gunshots. And the sword, as I said before, is not fully functional for the elite. And he also can't really run backwards either. Well, in the sense that, if he tries to move backwards, he just ends up T-posing again. which is forgivable. I mean, it's understandable why this happens. So moving on from this environment, let's get around to the Marines down here. And here are the Marines. Very similar models to the final game. This one has some slight differences from his final appearance, but this guy, I'm pretty sure his face is either identical or very nearly identical. Same for his armor. And this Marine is also either identical or near identical to the final release state. You can also take control of these just as the elite. Whichever one you're standing the closest to is the one that you will sort of possess. They also have weapon low ready states as well. But yeah. So the Marines also have their own facial animations for when they have to talk in the E3 video. Very handy tools that Bungie was using. But they have no AI whatsoever. So nothing really happens at all if you kill them. They do have some blitz platters, and there's that as well. A headshot seems to just completely delete them for some reason, as well as using a shotgun on them seems to completely, if you're a distance from them, it won't completely destroy them, like it won't disintegrate them, but if you're like right next to them and shoot it, they completely disappear. So I'm not sure if it's tied to the amount of damage they receive at once, if they just completely disappear, or how that works. Something I forgot to mention before is also when you press the 0 key on any NPC that you're controlling, it will preview their death animation. And then they'll just get back up. I'm guessing this is just for testing animations or making certain snippets for the E3 2000 trailer once again. What's interesting is holding it gives a sort of delayed animation. So you can see it's very odd how it's implemented. Of course, this was never really meant to be used like this, so you get some funny results when you do end up tinkering in a way that Bungie probably never wanted us to. So moving on to vehicles and their interactivity. So to interact with vehicles, like to get in a seat, you look at the seat and hit the Z key to get in. And this Warthog functions pretty closely to the Warthogs that we know in Halo 1, although obviously with some very unfinished physics. You can see this early, it looks like a Goshawk, but this was probably closer to a rocket Warthog. Getting on the turret in first person keeps you in first person, so I recommend switching to the following camera for a much better angle, much more standard angle. And as you can see, these shoot pretty much just rockets. They usually detonate on impact, but I have found that when you hit them on really like hard angles, like if I shoot this, it won't impact explode. It will instead be redirected to the ground, and then once it hits the ground, then it explodes. So I think that it somehow ricochets off of like really like 90-degree angles. I think it somehow like just completely redirects, and it can only really impact on slightly sloped surfaces. Any kind of slope on it will detonate on impact. Interestingly, I don't think that the rocket can actually hurt anyone, at least not the Marines. So it doesn't really work. My guess is that if they wanted to make someone look like they were dying from the rocket, they just used the preview death animation and just kind of scripted everything together. Also, when you get off of a turret in the following camera, it'll put you back in the first person without you setting it, but it'll be kind of janky and not true first person, as I would call it, I guess. So make sure you like manually switch it back to the first person camera, or things may get a bit wonky later. Same as you may notice it doesn't allow me to be in first person when I drive, but it's not like a true following camera. So this is water down here. And though it does not look very advanced, your Warthog tends to sort of float on the water, and it makes it very easy to flip or lose. And for the purposes of this demo, I do not want to flip this Warthog because it's impossible to flip it back up, or very difficult to flip it back up. And this can be used to traverse a lot of this landscape that I'm going to showcase. So up here is a familiar destination from the E3 demo, and many familiar assets. Very clearly the place they used for the demo, as well as the vehicles and elites. So we have here an early Wraith, and this Covenant vehicle, I don't remember if it has an actual name, but this looks like an early version of what would become the Spectre in Halo 2. At least that's what I think. Once again, the elites are fully possessable. Oop, wrong camera. With the same weapons as the red elite from before, and all these same animations there. And I forgot to show this with the red elites, but the blue elites also have their own talking animations, which is interesting. So we do that. So I'm going to do a quick showcase of this early Wraith, but it is very janky to use, so I probably won't show it off for very long. So it is, well, it's a Wraith. It's a very odd cannon design compared to what we ended up getting, but it is very, very closely, very functionally the same as what we would end up getting. Yeah. Once again, I don't believe that the weapon actually does any damage to, well, maybe. Okay, so this does do damage to them. Don't believe it can run them over, though. So, and when these NPCs die, all their weapons that they were carrying fall to the ground. So entering in this ride's pretty smooth. Not really much sound. You will notice there's not really a whole lot of sound in any of this. And they were probably more worried about the graphics and visuals that they could show off at the E3. And the sounds were added in later through scripting maybe, or maybe just like in editing they may have been added. I'm not entirely sure on some of them. So how it drives, I'm not sure if I can use the turret or not. I might be entering it from the wrong angle, maybe. I'm not really sure. So the cannon doesn't seem to have any sounds at all. Shoots, well, minimal sounds. Shoots very quickly. It seems to overheat eventually if you sustain fire. Well, now it's not. Any of these metallic surfaces that you hit with it seem to have like a lasting plasma effect. I'm guessing that's unintentional. Probably a bug. Still does damage to the elites. Let me test something actually. I guess I never did test the rockets from the Warthog on the elites. Also, I don't know if this can even run them over. Let me test that out. Probably not, if I had to guess. No. A lot of things don't have proper collision or physics yet. Okay, well, I guess I'm not going to test out the rocket turret because this thing just capsized on that. Okay, well, hey, shows you how well I can drive. So onto the facility itself, the one that we could only ever see in that E3 trailer. I'm not sure if there's a way to open these doors. I don't really think so, but I could be wrong. But it doesn't really matter because, like I said, the physics on things are not really completed and probably weren't intended to be completed for a while. And so we can just step right through. No big deal. You'll still see a lot of these Forerunner holograms. Very reminiscent. I mean, this whole facility is indeed very reminiscent of Halo C, particularly in the Silent Cartographer. More doors that you can simply walk through. I believe you can walk through the walls as well, but then you might fall out of the world, so I don't recommend that. So, coming further down here, if you remember the E3 video, um, this facility and pretty much every room of it is pretty easy to see from the video. Down here we have once again more Silent Cartographer-esque architecture. The ramps. We see more Marines that are here, probably to be used for their scripting. More doors, I think. Are these doors? No. Those are not doors. Don't go through those. Oh, fell off. Alright, that's fine. So we have these Marines. This was the hallway confrontation where they got ambushed by elites in the E3 trailer. So we have the elites there, and the elites there. Likely just waiting for their time to shine. And my guess is that once again, they're just going to have the same weapons as before. Oop, I was using the wrong camera the whole time. See? So, I believe this is a different color. I'm not sure if it's just because this is a dark environment or if his is more special somehow. It's interesting. So yeah, pretty much the same Red Elite as before. I believe that this is all that there really is to see in this facility as far as the, you know, you can very easily see how they laid all this out for the E3 demo to go and progress. They likely attached some scripting to these models to just run out at certain times. I mean, that's my guess anyways. So we're going to head out of this facility now, and I'm going to see if I can find that parts with the very large wild animals, and then I'll probably cap off the video there because I don't believe there's that much to this demo. Like, what you saw in the E3 trailer, I mean, that's like everything that they had in this, but there's nothing more, really. Let's try to use the Wraith. That might make for some smoother transportation than just being on foot. So for those of you looking for this build to try it yourself, I don't really believe I should provide a link to it because I feel like some bad things could come from that, but I will say you probably I believe that this is already on the Internet Archive. It's very easily found that way. So here are the animals. Whatever these things are called, I forget if they even have a name. Um, and these are possessable, just as every other NPC. And hitting one does that. I can't even see it. Hang on. So yeah, one puts it in that sort of roaring animation or looking animation as what you would see in the E3 trailer. Hitting 0 to preview their death animation, you will find they don't have any death animation. In fact, I'm not even sure that they can die. Or, I mean, if they do, they don't have any death animation. So yeah. No death animation. I'm not sure if they even can be killed. Very unique models. I remember being very fascinated by these in the trailer when I was a kid because I was wondering why we never did get that sort of indigenous animal life on Halo all those years ago if they had made these like a year before the game released. And I'm not sure what their reasoning was entirely for it. I'm sure they had reasons. They're amazing games without the sort of animal life on Halo, but it would have made it a bit more interesting, I think. So over here we have a nice little lake. The Wraith is sinking. It was floating over it for a moment, but I guess it can't really float for too long. Chief easily gets out though. So we are now just exploring. But yeah, very minimalist, very early build. It was meant to make a pretty trailer for E3 and not really much else, but it's still very fascinating. There's a lot of really interesting assets, models, sort of mechanics. You can see the inner workings of how they would have made the trailer. The early Chief model, while I'm glad that we got the one that we eventually did, I still enjoy this model quite a bit with the antenna on the back and the sort of darker green, I guess. It's a different shade of green at least, I think. There's a small Forerunner structure here. Not really anything going on with it though. There is a Wraith up there, but I think I've looked around a bit and I have not found a Banshee yet, and I have not found anyone who has found a Banshee. I'm not really sure how many people are really looking around this map that much though. Really, I've shown you most of the environment in this whole map though. There really is not a whole lot. And it was just made for the E3 stuff for the presentation. But still though, I am really glad that this did come out, though I do wish it came out under better circumstances. I wish that the dig site team could have been paid by Microsoft to restore this more and other projects, but I'm glad that we have it rather than that we don't. Even if it's under more unfortunate circumstances, the fact that we have it is still better than not having it, I think. I think that the final version for most of the things we got are better than these early states, but it is very interesting to be able to walk around this like sandbox of pretty much every asset they used to make that presentation, especially since I was so interested in a lot of the early workings of the things. So yeah, being able to access this makes me pretty happy, even if there's really not a whole lot of complexity to it. It's very interesting to finally have access to all these assets and just sort of having a sandbox of it. And I'm not really sure how feasible it is, but I really hope someone turns some of these assets into like assets for modded campaign missions for some Halo, or maybe even just take the assets from this game and put enough scripting together to make their own level. I'm not sure how possible that is. I have very little knowledge as a game designer, Certainly not enough to pull anything like that off, but there are some very, very talented modders out there. And with all the stuff that came out in the leak, I have no doubt that some people will make some amazing things with it someday soon. And really, that's kind of what it's all about now because, well, this year, what's really been going on with Halo? You know, barely anything really new. I mean, we have some new Halo Infinite stuff, but honestly, I have played Halo Infinite to death already, and I'm just ready to move on to a different game, honestly. But this year, a lot of old Halo content has come to surface. We have the Halo 2 E3 leak, which was a very mysterious E3 demo for 20 years. And only after 20 years do we finally have full, high quality public access to it. And that was because of the dig site team, which is gone now. So it's really telling what kind of path we're on with Halo right now as it stands. But you know what? It's fine. The community is still quite strong, even if it's smaller. There are a lot of really good modding projects out there. Some of them were made to restore cut content or early content that was just kind of scrapped in order to give us new Halo experiences that still fit the ideas and themes that came before, and really just add to the greatness of old Halo, in my opinion. The kinds of levels and campaigns that modders have been able to make in recent years is amazing. I mean, a lot of these mods I could have never even imagined when Halo 3 or Reach was out. I mean, the kind of levels and campaigns that are being made now, they're on par with, well, some of them are on par with like the original campaigns themselves. And that's very impressive. So, yeah, a bit of a tangent, but just kind of what I think on the old Halo stuff. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I might do a little more messing around with this in the future someday. I'm not really sure. But for now, I'll leave you all with a little view.